Yeah, we need to put wheels on all the tables. Wheels, no wheels, feet, no feet.
That extra 2 inches on the table was just like.
Feel like a small kid sitting there. The big kid table.
Oh, this is much better.
Looks like we're good. Okay. Good afternoon. I'd like to call this Board of Education study session with the County Commissioners to order. It is Tuesday, May 13th, 2025, and it is 4:35 p.m.
Flanagan?
Here.
Hay? Here. King? Here. McHugh? Here. North?
Here.
I'd like to move to approve the agenda. Second.
Flanagan?
Yes.
Hay?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
McHugh?
Yes.
North?
Yes. Say, do you feel prepared to talk about your financial situation, or would you like us to start since we're still waiting on a few of your people?
Or do we
I
need
think
to-
I would rather start because they've heard us talk about it and they
Okay.
might be interested to hear your situation.
Got it.
That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking too. Yeah. Okay.
Perfect.
So what I am not prepared in is I don't have a printed out presentation, but we have built a presentation to describe our financial situation. We're doing town halls around the community. We did our first one last night. And so when Brian gets here, I'll have printed versions of them to hand you all to look at. Not gonna try to go through, it's a long presentation, not a short one. Not gonna try to go through all of that here. I know you all know at a high level that we have a major property taxpayer that has reduced their production and we've lost around a third of our revenues over the last 10 years.
2/3. 20 million down to. At least from Henderson.
Yeah, I'm talking about like the total revenue loss because we've had growth in other areas.
Yes, we have.
New sales tax.
Okay.
So we had a pretty large gap. We have a $9 to $10 million structural deficit to try to overcome. We have, over the last 10 years, saved around 2.8 million through staffing reductions. Mostly accomplished through attrition. We did do some layoffs last year. And our FTE count is back to where it was in around 2005. We had this period of both revenue growth and staffing growth from 2005 to 2015. Roughly 30 to 35 FTEs that grew, and then about the same decrease over that time. We have also done some cost saving measures. When we moved to JEFCOM, we saved money with the dispatch program. We made that decision based on public safety first, and we think it's a better system than we were providing. We also saved some money. When the Health and Wellness Center debt is paid off in 2030, we will save $650,000 a year. That's what we're making, that's what we're paying right now. So we also have identified our board goals are all around. Our high level goal is financial sustainability. All of our board goals are intended to seek either in revenue increase or cost saving measures. The big ones that I'll mention are, we're looking at our jail operations. We have two options there. We have a jail that we built in order to house federal inmates. At the time, there was a perception we could do that at a profit.
It was 7 minutes, just.
It was 7 minutes.
Estimate how long it would take to go on the frontage road.
7 minutes.
7 minutes.
You were perfectly on time.
Exactly. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
7 minutes, my
I'm
favorite
assuming
trip.
Brian's probably behind me because I just talked to him, so I know.
So he's late.
Right?
So, yes.
So the jail.
So the jail, right here. The jail, we have two options. We can either lean back into housing federal aids, and increase our revenues by maybe a net of around $500,000. We can talk about cost increases as well. That does come with more capital liability and more legal liability. The other option we have is to pursue a partnership with another county to house our inmates, and move the jail to a booking only model, where we look at the transport inmates to another jail. That one has more significant savings potential, and it's more complicated to accomplish. The system and the prosecutors, and there are a lot of stakeholders there that want to be impacted, and so we're going to have that conversation this year. Hopefully, we'll have enough information to make a decision and put it into our budget for 26. We're assessing our need for facilities. We think that we can fit a lot more staff into the courthouse than we are. We think when it was remodeled in the mid-2010s, get more space than is needed, right? There's a lot of space there. So we think there's definitely some capital liability savings associated with offloading some of the buildings we own, but most of them are in Georgetown. We're really focusing on the buildings that house staff. We have the annex where planning and building lives. We have the White House across the street where the DA is, and there are also 2 buildings next to the courthouse. So we're looking at that as a cost saving measure. We are, on the revenue side, there's a lot of things that we are pursuing. We are scoping what it would look like for us to control what it would pass, and having a conversation with the Forest Service about what that looks like. Significant revenue potential there, and also public safety improvements. We're not asking to get congested in a way that makes it very unsafe for anybody. And Joey, I mentioned our community engagement. We're talking to the community a lot about what we have going on. We are asking staff to increase our economic development capacity. We're evaluating our options there. We are working with a consultant, a national consultant that has a lot of interest in Quigley County. We met them in Grand County, and right now they're writing a grant for us to be able to pay them and continue to work. We're also participating in the regional resiliency and figuring out what kind of capacity we lack so that we can proceed with that conversation faster. Not lastly, but if you look on the back side, this is the document that I've been going off of memory from. If you look at the back side, you will see we're looking at monetizing some county parking lots, the Health and Wellness Center, Floyd Open Space. We're looking at our model traffic code penalties at the state maximum. If they're not, we will help to make that adjustment. And we think it's about time. We're getting close to a time where the community needs to make a decision. We think we've done, from a cost control perspective, what we can, and we're really in a place where the community has a choice to make about the kind of services that they want. So we're evaluating the various tax proposals that we can make, and having a really careful eye on the impact of those proposals on different types of taxpayers. And that's part of this presentation. You'll see there are slides around what a sales tax increase would cost various families, what that would look like if we exempt food, what a property tax increase would look like. So I encourage you to look at that information. Our goal is to find something that we think is viable to put on the ballot this year. So we think we have, once we take the savings out of that gap that I first mentioned, and we quantify these cost saving opportunities, we think we're at around a $4.5 million gap that's either going to be service reduction or new tax revenue. The options we're looking at aren't intended to cover that whole gap, they're intended to get us within striking distance. So what's left to say? The priority when we're thinking about sustaining services is sustaining emergency services. We've been having conversations with municipalities that include the needs of the fire department, and trying to figure out what kind of a ballot measure can help all of these emergency services at the same time. So I know we have a lot of other stuff on the agenda, but that's an overview. I'm happy to take any questions or hear your
Question.
Yeah.
So obviously the property assessments are going out in my world, I'm getting 30 calls a day, right? So as I'm taking the notes and kind of calculating, and obviously I'm not Donna, Carol sitting in there, but it looks to me like we're realizing about a 30 to 40% increase in our property assessments. And is that calculated in your $4 million shortfall for next time?
Thank you, great question. No, it is not.
Okay.
That information, we saw those assessments at the same time you all did. The revenue potential from that is
It's
murky because the state, we may be subject to the state cap. There's a cap on revenue growth for counties at 10.5%. We may be subject to that. So we would be reducing mills late in the year. We can choose to reduce mills on our own. And the growth, if you want to know that it's 25% in residential, 32% in commercial.
That's too far off.
That's the average.
Yeah. It was significant for my household.
Yeah, I'm getting some, spirited conversations.
Are you having a lot of people appeal?
We're having a lot of people explore that process. It's pretty early. We all just got it in the mail last week, but I think we will have a lot of people.
I think June 9th or 8th.
And that's part of why it's hard to model right now what the revenue is, because a lot of that.
It'll shake out after a while, but you don't know what it is yet.
So how does that work? Like, does the state just say, Clear Creek, you're not allowed to have a 30% increase in home values, therefore you have to reduce it to 10.5, or what's the process?
If we are subject to that cap, we would lower our mill rate. The assessed values would stay the same and the mill rate would be reduced. And then in preceding years, if there wasn't that 10.5% growth, we would be able to raise that mill rate back up.
Thank you.
I do have a thought, if you start charging for parking on Floyd Hill for the open space, it then directs traffic here to our parking lot. And we have had some discussions before about how we might monetize that. So it might benefit, especially when there are race days, because the whole hill fills up.
It's a really good
flag.
And with an exception for residents?
I mean, residents here aren't parking on the road, but yeah, the roads.
Well, I mean, like the school parking lot.
So residents don't typically park in this, is that what you're saying? Is-
You said that the Floyd Hill people would come over here.
Yeah, when they're at the bike park,
Right, I know.
especially on race days.
That's
that
right,
fills
that's
up.
what I meant, that's what I meant.
Okay,
So if they come over here to park, are they parking the school parking lot or just around?
they start in the school parking lot and then they start lining
Okay.
the roads.
They fill it up.
All right,
And I've been, it's been a while, I've been up here when there's been an event, a school event, and there's nowhere to park because of all the bikers.
Yeah.
So.
yeah. Pay for parking here, but exempt residents.
Well, and I also think with the Guanella Pass issue, that we just have an awful lot of bad actors parking wherever the heck they feel like. And I almost feel like if we ticketed those folks, that's revenue that we could be getting as opposed to making the rest of us pay for parking.
That's one of the things in the model is we have a sheriff that is writing a lot more tickets, maybe even writing tickets at all. And we think there's significant increase in revenues from that. Maybe around $500,000.
And you go up to the
Nothing.
top and, you've got cars parked 3 miles down, that's a safety thing
Yeah, right.
as
And-
well.
And Jody was noticing that sometimes they're so, poorly parked that emergency vehicles couldn't get through.
Precisely, that's what I was getting at, yeah.
Remote ticketing is another thing that we're asking staff to scope. That's a complicated thing to do, that's a long thing to plan and execute, but there's a lot of potential there, both for public safety and obviously that's why you do
What do you mean by that, remote ticketing?
camera based. That's the better way to describe it. So if you're on a motorcycle and you're driving 100 miles an hour on Highway 103, like I just heard about the other day, you get a ticket. And I think that might make a lot of sense.
Just need more people to drive fast in school zones. Those are big tickets. I've heard that.
Okay, 7th grade, brand new mom in this school, and I was going 40. I got out of the school zone. I turned right, and it goes downhill. He got me going 40, and
In a 25. so
well,
yeah.
see, but there. I was going fast. But I just paid it. I'm like, yes.
I do think that there is some monetization that can be explored, and I appreciate the efforts on that front, certainly, and I hope that you guys just continue to highlight the quality of life for the citizens living here, already contributing to these services now.
We definitely hear all the town halls, that's what we're gonna, be engaging with people. We just did St. Mary's and that's what we heard. People parking on the sides of the roads and the traffic and the pedestrians, how unsafe it is, so.
We're overloved at sometimes.
If we just spend some money.
Yeah.
What I think I'm hearing is that as we talk about specifically Floyd Hill, you all need an opportunity to give us thoughts in writing about potential impacts to you and et cetera.
I think our biggest concern would just be an unintended consequence that if you're having people pay to park at Floyd Hill and they decide they don't want to, that they just become sort of I'm gonna say trespassers, that's not the word I mean, but that they would just assume park here for free. And then we would end up maybe in a bad way. So I think it's just thinking about how to coordinate that we're not encouraging them to use our property for free. And that maybe if we're gonna monetize, maybe we could get in on that game.
So,
That's,
Yes.
yeah, so
Yes.
we're more than likely going with Idaho Springs, who's already got that whole system set up.
Yep.
And we would just be adding the clinic, adding Floyd Hill.
And I just think it's making sure that if Floyd Hill is being added, we have a conversation about how we either separate our stuff out or get in on the game.
Where do we want to start with our finances?
Maybe I'll just
Okay.
start in the same place that you did about budget shortfall. We have a big one as well. We also have a large property taxpayer who doesn't pay the same amount that they did before. I think my recent calculation was in 2014, Henderson accounted for 68% of our budget. Now that number is 11%. So we're in a very similar spot, a kind of a structural deficit of a little over $1 million. We've worked really hard to cut, to do that through budget cuts. And so our staff has done a tremendous job at recommending about a $500,000 budget cut. And so we're kind of still working through those processes, but we're in that tough spot too of trying to figure it out. And unfortunately for us, unlike the county, we can't ask for any more taxes. We are maxed out on what we can ask. So we are where we are. I think we did find out that there could potentially be an opportunity for us to ask for a mill levy, but it would only be about $23,000 would be what we could ask for. And correct.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't math. That math doesn't math. So we are capped out at what we can get from our local community. And so it's a really challenging financial time for us. So our biggest way to kind of fill that gap truly is to market our school district the best that we can and retain the kids we have and bring more kids into the district. Because we just don't have other tools available for us right now. And don't know when that would change. We need a legislative change and we weren't successful at that this session. So that's kind of our hardship in that. And even with the increase in property tax revenue that came, we don't see that same increase. That just means the state gives us less. So we just kind of get what we get. And we don't throw a fit, I think is what the rhyme is for kids. So that's kind of our reality right now, is trying to figure out how we cut in a responsible way that stays as far away from students as we can, which gets harder year over year, of course. And then trying to think of other ways. So we're going to talk later today about an enrollment task force and how we can maybe look at ways to increase our enrollment. But I think kind of to Carrie Ann's point of, while you're talking in your town halls, if we could get you to make little plugs about how great the school district is and how important it is to send your kids here, I think that could be a really nice way to help share that message. So I think we're in just that tough spot right now. We're in the salary negotiations, budget finalizations by statute. We have to have one done by the end of June. So we're just kind of in the shell game of budgeting, similar probably to where you are right now.
Do you think some of the families have left? I just had another childcare meeting today. Do you think that's a part of it? That's kind of the groundwork for families staying, retaining families?
I think
There's
it's
not childcare sufficient enough.
I don't know that I hear that as a top reason. I think what I tend to hear more often than not is just general housing affordability and availability, and that neither exist. And so I think that's what I tend to hear more than childcare. Our programs have good, we have good participation in them mostly. And so now we just hope that we can keep the littles to go all the way through our system.
Well, it's the infants that I think is really lacking, because we have the pre-K, the programs at the schools and the rec center and stuff. It's that infant that we're having troubles with.
Say I was at that meeting with you, talked with a mother of a 6-month-old, and she said that they're already looking at Evergreen. They live here on the hill. And I was like, I would love for you to come and check out our facilities before you make a decision about middle school, high school.
Or even
I mean,
it's coming.
I'm saying though that she's got a 6-month-old and she's looking at this building, and it took my breath away. Like, please come check us out
Yeah, there was
first. I'd love to have a conversation with you.
the two families there, those kids looked like they were 3 to 4 years old. And they said that if something didn't happen, they would have to move. And I think it's because there's not good care on the weekends, after 7 o'clock here too, for some of the people that work in the service industry.
Yes, I don't think that was affecting the families at that meeting quite so much, but yeah, it's informing them that we have wraparound care at King Murphy, because, yes, you can work down in Denver and come home, pick your kid up, at 6 or 7, but it's one more of those marketing pieces for the task force. So, yeah. But yeah, thank you for.
Well, and I did hear from the group that is in King Murphy currently, if they felt there's something about our grants, I don't know if you've heard that this may not be available next year.
The 21st century grant.
Well, most of the grants are likely to be on the
Yeah, they're
table.
sunsetting.
The Colorado Department of Education has indicated, and the Joint Budget Committee, that they're willing to eliminate all of the grants provided through that State Department, which we receive about $1 million through different grants from either the state that is saying they're willing to get rid of those, or the federal government that is saying we're also getting rid of ours. So we do receive about $1 million annually in grant funding, all of which is on real shaky footing right now.
Is it safe to say, I mean, I view the role of county government as delivering healthy kids that are ready to learn into the school system. Is it safe to say the two most important things to focus on to that, beyond what we do in our Department of Human Services, et cetera, is to focus on early childhood education and housing?
Nice segue.
I mean, I think the good news is, from at least my perspective, we are working on those things. So now we just need to actually see the things get done, because we've got 119 units under active construction.
Things are
It'd be
in play.
great to see that done and families move in. We've got the Mountain Trails Center at the Building 103. It's gonna be great when that's done. That's 69 spots. So I mean, I think what we need to do is really figure out kind of how to augment those things instead of just trying to be additive until we see kind of what that is. But that's just my personal opinion. But I think housing affordability and availability should absolutely be top priority for all of us, really.
Yeah. And it
as
seems
much
like,
as we can.
I could be wrong, but our preschool attendance is the highest of any of our grades. I mean, so
Oh,
it's
really?
there.
Oh, yeah,
It's
we're
just
excited
keeping
about
them-
that.
It's just keeping them here.
Yeah.
Right.
So we want them to go not just here for preschool, we want them to then come to kindergarten, and then we want to make sure that they come all the way through elementary school, and then they come to middle school. So I think we want to just make sure, because we're getting these littles, we just want to make sure that we keep them.
And Georgetown has the same capacity issues as well. They're keeping full. Which is great.
We just have to raise them and keep them here.
It takes a village.
Is there any other questions, comments?
Can we move an orphanage into Clear Creek?
An orphanage?
Is there any, like, relief on the horizon inside your budget, like other expenses that'll go away eventually, or?
No, our expenses are going up and our revenue is going down. Because everything costs more. People cost more, materials cost more, insurance costs more, everything costs more.
Based
We're
on the
getting
growth
less.
that number we're getting is going down.
And we can only
Funds are
project it continuing to go down because that's what the history has shown us. So we have to work with that
It's not going-
declaration.
It's not going down as dramatically as it was. I think Tom will share that. The enrollments, it's not going down as dramatically as it was, but it's still going down.
I mean, we're projecting that we will lose, through the change in the way the state is funding, 17.7 students next year.
Average.
And that I hope is a low estimate, or a high estimate, but I think it is low. My daughters are in the district, and one of them has counted on her hands the number of kids in her small class that are leaving, and it's a third. And so I think we're really looking at some real enrollment challenge. Hopefully not as bad as we've projected, but the little glimmer is all the way to the littles.
So your daughters are in high school now?
I have a 7th grader and a 5th grader.
Oh, okay. So that's not, little's childcare issue, that's housing?
That is affordability. The vast majority of her 10 friends that are moving out of state because it's too expensive to live in Colorado.
Big thing, just go back to preschool for a little bit, and I have no actual proof of this, okay, but, so I'm just gonna say that, but if we can get them when they're in preschool, or like what you're talking, if you can get them at that young age, the likelihood of them staying here is high. We talk about housing affordability, but if they take off in kindergarten, 1st grade, likelihood of them coming back is more challenging, I think. I have no actual proof of that, but I think I'm right on that.
The grocery stores would agree with you.
No, yeah.
Build that relationship early. Thanks.
And our families are just a little more, flexible in their lives, and they want the flexibility and they want the ability to do what they want to do. And so it's incumbent on us to figure out what is it they want to do, and how can we match that? So we're always speaking as well.
say, you were asking about budget changes, and we've got the old Carlson update and the sale of that facility, which would be an influx of dollars that would be able to go toward other capital projects, but that doesn't help us with teacher retention and paying salaries. But if either of you want to speak to that.
Sure. We are under a purchase and sale agreement for the purchase of Old Carlson. We call that OC, just for the hip lingo. And I think it's an exciting project, but it's also a do not hold your breath project because these are long projects. So we're projecting that this would be mixed use housing, all kind of different income levels. So the developer is looking at LIHTC, MITEC, and market rate, all within that same property bounds. What I think, and Carrie Ann, you'll have to correct me if I get some of these dates wrong, but I think what we're really looking at is a closing toward the end of this year, assuming that they are successful in their tax credit applications. And if not, they've padded in another additional year to kind of get rejected and go back and get them again.
I think the reality is probably June 2026.
That's kind of what we're projecting. The good news is their vice president of development has done successful projects like this in mountain communities in Colorado. The overall developer has not done a project in Colorado. So it's going to be a very interesting piece. So we have some local ties with their kind of executive team and their Colorado experience, which I think has been great because they were able to know what pots of money they can apply and ask for and which ones they cannot. And so that I feel excited about it, but not so excited I'm going to hold my breath for the next 18 months.
I keep telling her it's not done till it's done.
Yeah, Kelly, you just calm this right down. But it's when we had our community meetings and we talked about what we wanted and almost more importantly, what we don't want. This fits really well within that kind of parameter that the community talked about. The other nice thing about this particular developer is their commitment to engaging and working with the community. They've already met with Idaho Springs and had some good kind of initial meetings with the city. So it's exciting, but to Jessica's point, it is certainly not a huge financial windfall. And because it is one-time dollars, that can't go into our operations. Those need to go into our capital funds. And while we certainly are excited to have any money going to anything, our needs are so much greater than what that would be able to do. I think our assessment is between 18 and 20 something million of what's needed in our facilities. And so that would make a small little dink, but a small little dink is better than nothing. And so we got to just keep chipping away.
And one of the other things that we're investigating is what can we do on the energy saving side of things. So we have been working with a company, Verigy, to see what that looks like on an audit. And we haven't decided as a board to move forward on that, but it's one of our ways of investigating where can we retain some operational funds and give it back to the classrooms. All of our utility bill money is that same money. So if we save $10,000 on an electric bill every month, then we get to give that to the classrooms and the teachers. So that I think is an exciting effort as well. I mean, and it helps us become a little more sustainable.
We did get a request to support the middle income housing tax credit application. What we had time to evaluate in the time, it's kind of a quick turnaround. Our housing needs data doesn't show much of a need for the 80 to 120 middle income housing tax credit. We did state that in the letter. We also, the developer stated that they have more recent data that maybe does show there's a need there. And so we encouraged the NOC or whoever they're applying to consider the developer's data.
Thank you.
Say, we touched on early childhood education, but is there more we'd like to lift up there?
We had a great meeting this morning and people are touring. Do you want to share?
Yeah, we had the meeting today with the mayors and the commissioners. Jessica did a presentation.
That's Jessica Trivett.
Sorry, yes, Jessica Trivett did a presentation, with Tiara's on, you know, how many kids they can, this is more for the summer though. That's what her short-term goals are. I don't know if she's put this on there, I think anybody wants to look at it, I put some notes on it. Basically, it's the money that's allocated, the 90,000 that is from the lodging tax, and then each of the municipalities have, it's not like formal, but you know, 10,000 here or 5,000 there. So she's got a budget of families that they can help through scholarships. Mitch talked about a program that they're doing for trying to get like 10 floating substitutes that could go from the rec center. The school could use them, and who else?
I think we're talking about Fairleigh Tall and GCS.
Yeah. It's because you guys all have different application processes and stuff, and maybe combining that. And I think he's looking at getting a grant for that. It was like $10,000 or something. And I did a walk through the LDS church with Jessica and some of her interested parties. She has 2 private entities that are interested in possibly, I don't know if it's renting out or what, but they wanted to see what the facility looked like, what the rooms look like, the bathrooms, and how they can make that work. That would be separate than what this, obviously, the Carlson model is and GCS. So, I don't know, I'm just hopeful because I think when they did the assessment, it was around 200 seats that they needed. So if the Carlson does 69, and this one is, the lady that was there that does the licensing, she was there. So she said they could do from 45 to 90 depending on how they laid it out, because they need adult bathrooms and kid bathrooms, and they don't have stuff like that. So as it is right now, it would only seat 45. And then Georgetown could see some more, so. Hopefully they'll stay organized. That's, I think, kind of something the last 10 years just gets going and then it just falls apart. So if they can just keep going with something, and we have a road that's a problem. They're gonna talk to Philadelphia, the fire authority, and see, you know, what that entails. There's not a sprinkler system, so that's another issue. I think it's doable if they could get the funding, but it's like the egg and the chicken, you know, what's gonna come first. And if they do this model, the private one, they're talking about taking in tours to kids to offset the cost of the people in the community that they can't pay. So I thought that was interesting.
I'll add to that, I'm pretty excited we have 5 jurisdictions and 4 organizations that have different sets of resources, and we've had our second meeting where we're really starting to have a unified vision and a strategy. We think what ECL came up with is fits really well with the Schools Foundation Workforce Development proposal. We are talking about contributing to that expense as well. We know that what we want to do is level up their ability to go find outside funds. And I think within a month or so, we're gonna have a plan and kind of know who's spending what. And I'm really excited. So this will be the second year in a row. I think childcare, early child learning programming, you're gonna see a level, yeah.
And she said that some of that money is being used until the end of the school year, I believe, so it lasted this whole time. So that's good.
Does it include infant care at all, since that seems to be the lacking part now?
That's where the LDS church would come in.
Yeah.
Part of that would be dedicated to infant and then toddler, and that's where, like, it's changed a lot since our kids were younger. You have to, there's so many regulations, they have to have sinks in every room. They have to have food prep area. And so that would be a significant cost. I think the assessment said about 800,000, and that's with the outside playground, and that was in 2018.
the neighbors has noticed.
So you know everything.
Double it.
Yeah, yeah.
But there, and this is really a good segue into the conversation that we have. We've been talking to the Georgetown Community School about the use of that facility, which we know you own. And the licensing person thought that they could do an infant room with pretty small capital investment. It's pretty close to already having what they need. In my mind, this begs the broader question around just the use of school facilities in the summer, before and after care, what that looks like. I am sure that is a complicated question and not a simple question, not one you could answer right now, but I think the 9 entities that I was talking about that are really interested in this, our planning could benefit from some clarity around what the obstacles are, what the willingness is around the use of school facilities.
I did have somebody reach out to me, and I apologize, I don't recall their name or title at this point, but they did reach out to me about, using the Georgetown Community School for that very purpose. And I said, that fits, but all you gotta do is talk to the leader of that school. We have a facility use agreement that you can just fill out, and they can, you guys come up with your thing, you give them your insurance, and that can be worked out.
Because
And
didn't
that
we
was
do
the
that with
conversation.
Carlson and the summer program in the past? The old Carlson, wasn't there a summer program out of
It was a partnership with the rec center.
Oh, okay.
And it was
Oh, there was,
just
yeah,
sort of like the
yeah.
staging in the gym.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I have not touched base with my contacts at Georgetown to see how that landed or where it connected or didn't connect, but, I'm happy to facilitate if anybody doesn't know
Because
where
I-
the match.
Forwarded some of those questions to Tom about insurance, so you might be able to
Right.
speak to.
Yeah,
that.
sure.
And it came down to, there might be insurance presenting it to
Right.
Georgetown.
Yeah.
I talked to Kathleen, and I wasn't at the meeting, we had a teacher recognition for Carlson, but it really comes down to just getting that, but going to like what someone said, just keeping that ball rolling. We've all been involved in these conversations before, and at least I have, just, it has to keep rolling, that conversation has to be someone pushing it along. That way, because it is a need, it's an obvious need, right? I think we all, let's be very honest, I think we all believe it's an obvious thing that we need to do something.
That's why if a private entity was to come in, because insurance is a big issue with people. There's, I guess, a lady that, she's a Montessori teacher.
Yep.
And she said she's willing to go with 10 kids, but she needs a place and, something that can get insurance.
That's exactly what we did in Georgetown. There was a group of us parents that said, we don't have a thing here, so we started our own Montessori school. Don't ask me how we got around the insurance thing, but we did it. We were in partnership with Historic Georgetown, that's how I managed it. They allowed us a building to use for that.
Well, I think providing like summer care is a good way to engage the families for future, because they're not going to Evergreen or meeting families
Right.
outside of our district to entice them to go somewhere else. Yes, they're core friends here, and so maybe they'll stay here.
Well, and that meeting that we went to, I mean, the moms are driving their kids to Boulder, Lakewood.
Oh, yeah.
Bolton, and then they either come back and work in the community, some are going to Summit. I mean, it's 12 hours on the road with these kids.
I think, Marcy, you're right. I think when kids start developing friendships at a childcare center down the hill, they're thinking
Yeah,
about
they're
all
done.
these friends
Yeah.
at the elementary school down the hill.
Well, now you're used to the drive.
Exactly, no.
One of the reasons why I was really excited about the potential of building 103 and why I think that's the location to really focus our resources on having success. That's just a direct pipeline to the school system.
Thank you. So are we good on early childcare? I want to keep this moving along. So, I'd love to hear about the housing authority, and where that is and where it's going.
Sure. Well, each of the contributing partners, which is the 4 municipalities and us, have appointed representatives to the board. And we've met 4 times. So we're busy completing all the tasks associated with setting up a brand new governmental entity. And that's things as simple as needing a PO box to, well, we can't have a PO box if we don't have an address, right? So the county is gonna lease space to the executive director and to the housing authority in our health and wellness center through 2026 to get them stood up. So they can figure out at that point where they might wanna move, can they take on a lease, et cetera. The executive director position is open right now, and we are collecting resumes and applications for that. The county is taking the lead on the application process. The board will obviously be the one that makes that decision. So that position is open through, I think, next Monday. And we have a meeting on Monday evening, where we'll start going through resumes and deciding if we've got enough to interview or continue to keep that open. So at this point, they are busy just doing all these simple tasks that are all these, some simple, some not so simple in terms of just standing up the entity itself before we can get into the process of starting to set priorities, et cetera. We did get a local planning capacity grant from DOLA, a little over $90,000 to hire both a consultant to help us with all the various items of getting stood up, a strategic planning process, also hiring an attorney to help us with some of the legal aspects of setting up the authority, et cetera. So only met 4 times, but busy trying to check all those boxes to really start getting the actual work done of a housing authority, so.
Thank you. I'd love to move on to the SRS funds, rural schools funds,
Because we like that.
we do appreciate the support that we're receiving, and we'd like to continue, so would you like to take the lead there?
Sure. I actually had an update just today about it, which I'm pretty excited about. Right now, in the US House, in the skinny budget bill, not the big, beautiful bill, the other one, there is a 3-year reauthorization of the SRS that's in there right now. And that would be 24, 25, and 26. If that stays. It is having some challenge in the Senate right now, because they get to provide their own kind of little baby bill or skinny budget reconciliation bill, and then they kind of have to come together. So the good news is how the House has reauthorized. The Senate has not. So trying to kind of work to shore up some support that way.
And tell me what SRS is.
The Secure Rural Schools, it's attached to PILT. And so it goes to counties that have a lot or have had a historic amount of timber.
Yep.
And it really mostly is rural states and then rural counties within those states. So not every state gets it, which I think is why it kind of turns into the Hunger Games in Congress, because it's why does Colorado get it and some other place doesn't get it? And then it's like, oh, well, you didn't have timber and you didn't have logging as an industry. And that is really where it started. PILT is payment in lieu of taxes.
Yes.
And so it has to do with a lot of federal land. And then the Secure Rural Schools is part of that. So that's how that, yeah, so that's how that piece works. So it's exciting to see that it's made it through that first part, but the challenges aren't past. But I heard optimism in the presentation today, and I will hold on to it. Carrie knows I hold on to the optimism. So it was like, okay, this is good news. So I feel good about that. And so if you're interested in putting political pressure on the United States delegation, this is a good time to do it. Bennett has signed on to it. Hickenlooper has not yet.
I know for this year's SRS funding, of course, I think we have received it, or we know how much we will receive. The way that it's a little bit different for us this year is anxiety about bill funding, right? Our incentive to share 75% and not 25%, if I remember, or not 50%, is because we get that money back in Hilton, and that's how we maximize funding for the school. For this year, I mean, we had a session on it today. We approved the contract we always do, where we're going to be sending you 75% of those funds.
Yes, thank you.
Of course, it's because we love school so much, and not because,
You would have to give it back.
not because we would have to give it back.
We knew it was the love.
Thanks, George.
We love it.
Thanks, George. We'll say love school. Let's go with that.
And so if you're talking to your national leaders, protecting PILT is a great way to protect SRS funds making it to schools. So I think we've gotten some, shared incentives and some shared values and shared goals. So, but for this year, it looks like PILT isn't showing up anywhere in that stuff as a threat. So I feel pretty good, and that stays.
So, any suggestions for future agenda items, we'll reach out to you again in the next quarter when we meet again, but if there was anything that rose, otherwise I would love for.
Well, I would just make one quick plug. If
Yes.
you are not busy tomorrow, the Clear Creek Economic Development Corporation is having its second resiliency meeting. It's going to be at the Indian Springs. And so if you haven't gone to see the Indian Hot Springs, so if you haven't gone to see a lot of the investment that they've made, they're going to show it off. So if you are available, please come.
I'll be there.
What time is that?
The morning, 8:30 till, well, it's actually going to be an interesting one because there's a tack-on meeting at the end. But it is from 8:30 to 1.
And then if you're lovers of music, the choir performs at 6 tomorrow and the band performs at 7. So, yeah, we'll just keep you busy all day. Yeah, otherwise,
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Cardigan?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
King? Yes. McHugh?
Yes.
yes. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
And feel free to stay and watch the study session. And don't drive through construction zones.
Very impressed.